Welcome to this review. Today we'll be reviewing the Czechoslovakian TVP VTU Koncept, the tier 8 medium tank. I've unlocked the T50 now, so this tank for me no longer has the crew and it's missing some of the equipment I mounted. But basically I mounted a vert stab on it, coated optics to increase the view range, and a rammer. And I've been playing with the stock turret and the long 88, and this was actually on purpose. I'll get to that in a minute when we come to review the stats. Let's quickly bring up my service record on this tank, see if I can find it. It's somewhere at the bottom, because the thing is, I played this tank mainly in strongholds and team battles, because it's a tier 8 tank, so you can use it actually for that. So there we've got my TVP VTU. As you can see, 34 battles in randoms, 59% win ratio, which isn't too bad. Average damage wasn't too good, but I also played this one in team battles, unranked ones, 45 battles, 56% win ratio, as well as skirmishes. And in skirmishes I managed to get in 70 battles, 71% win ratio. And I mean, not too bad all in all. So, I mean, I did actually play this tank all the way through. I just didn't play all of the battles in randoms. But yeah, let's quickly run down the stats in Tanks GG and then we'll get to some gameplay. So here we can see that I've brought up the TVP VTU Koncept on Tanks GG, and we'll compare it to its peers that are sort of the same type of tanks. I mean, there's a T54 light tank in there as well, but that's just for like DPM comparison and stuff. So let me quickly explain. The left column is the tank the way I played it, so with the stock turret and the 88mm gun. This column is pretty much the same configuration apart from having the top turret. This one is with the 10.5cm gun configuration and the top turret, and then we've got the AMX CDC and the STA1 as comparison for the medium tanks. They're sort of the same thing, and we've got the T54 lightweight. So we can see that, I mean, the DPM on the TVP VTU with the stock turret is the same as on the CDC, so that's actually quite nice. Oh, as well, all of these tanks in this comparison, I've got a rammer, coated optics, and vert stab mounted. So keep that in mind when you see these DPM values, because out of the box they're about around 2000 for these ones, and 1800 I think for this one. So, I mean, the nice thing about the TVP VTU is actually that the AP penetration is 194. There's quite a lot of tier 8 medium tanks that have 175mm penetration, the same as the T54 lightweight. And in the current game meta, this results in you having to spam quite a lot of premium ammo to be competitive, especially if you're dropped into higher tiers and come up against heavy tanks. But with 194 penetration on the 88mm gun, which I played, to be honest, especially also in like team battles and skirmishes, I had no problems engaging IS-3s frontally at all. I mean, obviously, if you go sniping at like 300-400 meters, then it's much wiser to load the premium ammo. But in sort of medium to close range brawls, you could actually quite easily shoot through the IS-3 front plate anyway. Initially, I played this tank with the upgraded turret as well. And while the upgraded turret has, as you can see, about 100 DPM more and gives you more HP, it also has less gun depression, which is very frustrating in a lot of engagements. I mean, as you can see, it's got 6 degrees of gun depression on both the 88 and the 105, while the stock turret has 8 degrees of gun depression, and that actually makes quite a difference when you play it. Because you've got no armor, so you sort of have to use your gun depression to stay safe from the enemy. But I mean, in the end, I decided to switch back to the stock turret and just have slightly lower DPM, but have more gun depression. As you can see, gun handling wise, the top turret only gives you slightly better dispersion on moving the turret. So, I mean, the aim stats are still pretty much the same. And as you can see, I mean, compared to the SDA1 and the CDC, it's actually quite nice. And especially the aim time of 1.9 seconds with a vert stab and then these really nice dispersion values means that you can actually do quite a lot of pinpoint shooting with this thing. The 10.5 had a much longer aim time, but I mean the general stats are also quite nice still, apart from the aim time and slightly lower penetration of 188. So it really depends on what you like in a medium tank if you run it with this configuration or the 88 one. Personally, because I played it a lot in competitive modes, I went for the 88mm as well because of the higher rate of fire, meaning that you can more easily track tanks, stuff like that, which is more important in that game mode than in randoms. In randoms is more like peekaboo and then see who comes out on top in most of the cases. So the gun itself on this tank is really nice. The armor is, as you can see, let's quickly bring it up, it's 65mm flat, but I mean, you're not going to get more than, say, around 70, 80 armor anyway, so don't rely on your armor at all. Everyone will basically penetrate you, especially from the side, 30, 40mm with some space track armor and stuff. Rear is just as garbage, so basically this tank has no armor, don't rely on it, don't use it, use your gun depression, and don't attack enemies that are actually looking at you. Mobility wise, it's not too bad. I mean, you can't really compare the CDC mobility, but compared to the SDA1, it's pretty similar actually. SDA1 is slightly slower, but the TVP with the stock turret has a HP to ton ratio of nearly 21, which is actually really good, really close to the T54 lightweight. The problem with the top turret is that it is pretty much the same turret size-wise, but for some magical reason, wargaming being wargaming, it's nearly like 2,500 kilos heavier for no apparent reason. Armor layout is pretty much the same, so it actually means that if you mount a top turret on the TVP VTU, you're actually slower. So keep that in mind as well. I mean, it's not much, but it makes it slightly more sluggish. Yeah, armor-wise, not much to say. View range is not too good on the stock turret, only slightly over 407. So that's why I mounted coated optics. But yeah, still, it's not too great, but I mean, it's workable. It's definitely not bad. And then the camo values, as you can see, they were actually worse than the SDA1, much better than the CDC. Don't know why, because the CDC is technically a tank destroyer, but then again, wargaming. And inferior to obviously the T54 light tank. So all in all, I mean, this tank, while it wasn't the best tier 8 medium for me, I can safely say that it's actually quite competitive. It's definitely not bad. I mean, a lot of people find this tank really bad, but then again, I mean, if you compare it to more of the old mediums like the T44 and the Pershing, which have a gun which does 100 or has like 180 penetration now, this is definitely a difference you'll notice, as well as the really nice DPM. I mean, I found this tank perfectly workable even in randoms. So yeah, we'll go to the gameplay now and then see how it goes. So this is the first match of this review of the TVP VTU. Some of you might recognize it as it's the replay that featured on this channel earlier, where Chemical got his ace tanker in the WZ-131. And this is basically the match from my perspective. So as you can see, mobility wise, I mean, the TVP keeps up quite well. I mean, it does climb hills and everything quite well as well, since it's got a really good horsepower to ton ratio. It's in comparison, it's quite a light tank, so it climbs hills pretty well, maintains the speed. As you can see, I mean, when I turn the turret, the bloom on the reticle isn't actually that bad for going like 50 kilometers an hour. So yeah, I mean, let's just quickly look, because I normally used to shoot AP with this thing. APCR has 237 penetration, so that is actually not that great. It is workable, mainly for tanks like IS-3s and stuff. At longer ranges, I would use this premium ammo, because the 194 penetration actually doesn't work too badly in most engagements. I mean, obviously, if you're going to take on tier 9, tier 10 heavies from the front, then not only are you doing it wrong, but it won't work with this gun that well. So at the start, we tracked this guy, so 250 damage, quite a nice roll, and we're just going to try and get another shot in. I mean, this was kind of stupid, and you saw how the gun depression kind of screwed me over there already. I mean, this is a stock turret, so it's got 8 degrees gun depression, but that still will give you problems. Like here, I just can't get my gun down onto that WZ. So that is why I went for this turret to begin with, because if you have 6 degrees of gun depression, it's just infinitely worse in most engagements. You need to expose so much of your tank to actually get a shot, and this thing has no armor. So that is actually the last thing you want to do. You don't want to actually expose more than your turret, or more than you have to get a shot in and quickly get back before the enemy can fire back. So at this point, we're just trying to get shots onto that WZ. We see an IS-6 on our side, but he quickly pulls back, and I try to stay relatively safe. Our M103 actually pulled back. Guess he's afraid of the WZ. I shoot into the ground because I'm a potato sometimes aiming. But we can't do anything at the moment. I'm hoping that Artie will get this guy, but Artie is actually busy saving chemical up on the hill, so I didn't know that at the time. T29 tries to put a nice shot in again. I tried to put one in, and it goes, I don't know if it went into the ground or what. I thought the WZ had fired here, but I was wrong, because it was actually the Panther that shot. So I lose another quite large chunk of my HP, and then Artie finally wakes up and starts targeting me. So that means that for now I am out of this engagement, have to pull back. So as you can see, even Artie splashing next to your tank penetrates. I mean, front plate penetration right there. Yeah, don't expect this armor to work at all. I mean, I had some bounces by T54 lightweights from really retarded angles, but in general, everything that shoots at you will penetrate. It's not as bad as the CDC. I mean, people sometimes compare this tank to a gimped CDC, and I can see where they're coming from. Although this tank doesn't take as much HE damage as a CDC does, because CDC has 10 armor, so basically any HE shell will always penetrate and do pretty much maximum damage. And this tank doesn't have that problem. Mobility wise, I mean, while it isn't as fast as the CDC, it sort of, mobility wise, is definitely not bad. It's better than the S-Tier-1. And I actually, to be honest, I really like the S-Tier-1. I like it more than this tank, but the reason for that is that the S-Tier-1 has 218 penetration on its regular ammo, and I personally do not like to shoot premium ammo pretty much at all. I mean, sometimes you have to, but I always try and avoid it. So I like tanks that actually have good penetration on the AP rounds and are competitive with normal ammo. So I mean, that's why. I mean, tanks like the T54, obviously, which is kind of a bad example, but that thing has 200 penetration on the regular rounds and 330 on the premium, because balance. So yeah, I don't like tanks like that, even though they're troll and fun to play. I don't like the actual tank design. And I didn't have the problem with this tank actually. Even with the stock turret and the 88, it's pretty competitive. I mean, it's not IS-3, but then again, I mean, this rate of fire, it is actually as good as the T54 Light, pretty much, rate of fire wise. So that makes it really nice just to basically put a lot of fire into the enemies. We'll see the next battle after this one, so see you in that one. So this is the second match of this review. I'm platooned up with Noki and Mavi from F15, and we're here on Fisherman's Bay in a pretty alright matchmaking for this tank. I mean, there's a couple of tier 9 tanks, but there's a lot of tier 8 tanks as well, and a couple of scouts. But in this match, I'll be using the TVP more as a long-range sniper rather than a brawler in the first match, which this tank is actually quite suited for. While the penetration over distances does drop quite significantly on this gun, it seems it's very similar to the French 90 and 100mm guns that suffer from the same problem, where the AP pen basically drops quite radically over distance. So that's why I said that it's good to carry a few premium rounds, especially for engaging heavies at longer ranges, because you don't want to ding off them. A bit of potato aim here at the start by me, got spotted for it, so retreat back. And I mean, this tank, as I said, these matches in the replays are actually matches I played it in randoms. Most of it was played in things like skirmishes and team battles, and in matchmaking like that, where it's basically only tier 8, this tank actually does really well. You usually, in that kind of matchmaking, I would use this tank to go pretty much with the light tanks to wherever they went, because you have pretty much the same rate of fire as a light tank, but you've got more armor or more HP to actually soak up a little bit of damage. Try to put a speculative shot into E75 turret, but obviously not going to penetrate at this range. But yeah, as a support for light tanks or heavy tanks, if you don't engage them frontally, this tank is actually really nice. I mean, obviously now that I've deleted it in tier 8 strongholds, I will probably play T54 light and CDC, because the CDC is still superior to this tank, but I mean, it's also inferior in other areas. Trying to put a nice shot into the super Pershing, gun depression, having a bit of a trouble, and then we get shot in the side by this E75, who's using premium ammo on a no armor tank. So we'll repay him in kind slightly later on in the replay for that. But yeah, I mean, the tank, yeah, it's perfectly competitive. Waiting for my team to actually do something, and here we see the tortoise. I did load premium ammo, even shooting at the cupola, because this is quite a range, and as you can see, the gun is actually quite accurate. You can snipe with this gun really well, actually. It's in that respect, it's very similar to the German guns. Accuracy wise, you can actually snipe with it, so it's a bit of both worlds. As I said, it drops penetration over range, but it's also quite suited for sniping. So that was a bit of a horrible shot. Don't know why I aimed for center mass on a tortoise, but I mean, yeah, I probably had my reasons. Herp-a-derp aim probably. So tortoise backed up, but now we see this E75, and that's one shot in, and casually go for the reload. I mean, the reload on this thing is, I think, slightly over 6 seconds. So yeah, just take more and more health off this E75. Now he angles quite well, but he gives us the flat side of the turret. So another one in, and he gets tracked. So now it's good night, Mr. E75. Thanks for using gold ammo. Let's give you back what you gave me. So yeah, we've got 3 premium shells left. As you can see at the start, I had 11 loaded in this tank by default. Like tier 9 to 10 matchmaking, you actually, in this kind of engagement, you want to use it, because these 2 guys, tier 9 tanks, need to die, because that gives our team actually something to work with. So trying to see if we can get a shot on this tortoise, but it's not really happening. There's like a ridge in the way. Still got premium ammo loaded, could have actually switched to AP here. So Put a shell into the MT-25, try to get a cheeky shot in again, and we get smacked in the face by the waffle camping in base. So, pro player there. Try to put the shot back in, and I don't know why I track the no armor tank. This shot vanishes completely, no clue where that went. And now I've actually got HE loaded, so I aim for the gun mantlet and do 96 damage because will the tanks. And now I'm trying to obviously get the Lorraine. Shell velocity on this tank is also quite nice, as you can see. The shells fly quite fast, so you don't have to lead that much. Put a nice roll into that guy. Then we've got the Tiger P. I'm just trying to stay hidden on a one shot for a lot of tanks in this match now, so don't want to expose myself too much. Can't get a shot in and pull back. So yeah, I mean it's going quite alright. Nearly 2,500 damage already from range. So stayed relatively safe. I did some stupid stuff which basically got me hit. But that was more my own fault than anything else. I should have paid more attention maneuvering. But if you play this tank long range, you do actually have the room to make these kinds of mistakes. Because you try and keep out of shot of the enemy as much as possible. So in those engagements you have more HP to work with. Because in brawling ranges you basically take damage all the time because the enemy can't miss you and pretty much always has a shot. Whereas in long range engagements where this tank actually quite shines, you can stay quite safe. But it's time to actually go do something now because the enemies are all on this side of the map. So yeah, let's go there. I mean, as I said, I did actually grind this tank all the way through. The only free XP I used at the start was to get this 88mm gun because I wasn't going to play this tank with a stock gun. And yeah, apart from that, I played it for sort of like 150 matches spread out over randoms, team battles and skirmishes, and I quite liked it. I mean, it definitely wasn't bad. Obviously playing it in skirmishes and team battles means that you get more favorable matchmaking, obviously, which makes the experience more enjoyable as well. But I mean, there's nothing stopping you guys from doing the same. If you don't like this tank in randoms, it's a tier 8. You can actually play it in team battles and skirmishes. So if you want to, just do that because I mean, there's nothing stopping you, and it is quite a nice tank to play with. Yeah, so this is my review of the TVP VTU. I do hope that the analysis at the start and these matches were informative of how I think this tank should be played to maximize its strengths and hide its weaknesses. Let me know what you think. If you like this review, feel free to rate it or subscribe to the channel, and see you guys next time.